Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. This is your host, Bia, entrepreneur and small business coach and founder of Be a Boss Coaching. Today's episode, you'll hear from Alexa Juanita Jordan. She is a life coach, writer, marketing consultant, and executive director of the Juanita James Memorial Scholarship Fund, where they provide scholarships to college students from the Bronx housing projects. She is truly incredible. I'm so excited that I had the chance to speak with her. She's a native New Yorker, and I'm so excited for you to hear all about her journey. If you've ever felt misaligned, this episode is for you. But before we dive into the episode, if this is your first time being here, welcome. You can find out more about me at beabosscoaching.com. And I encourage you to come get on my newsletter where I share the latest episodes, new blogs, and opportunities that you'll hear about first. So I share my overall journey as a former social worker turned small business and entrepreneur coach. And I hope that you get so much from it. Trust me, I go into my newsletter. I share just my own experience and thoughts and insights that I've learned. All right, enjoy the show. All right. Hi, Alexa. Welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Can you introduce yourself and what your business does?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Alexa Juanita Jordan. I am a life coach, writer, marketing consultant, and the executive director of the Juanita James Memorial Scholarship Fund. So a couple of different hats that I wear. As a life coach, I work with people to bridge the gap between their inner and outer worlds to live more authentic lives. As a writer, I have a weekly blog called Wild Cozy Free. That is an exploration I call of the self underneath all of my roles and getting at some of the authenticity in my own life and embodiment of, inside out. I also have written 3 full-length plays about mental health, Me Too movement, and reproductive rights, as well as some shorter length plays about racial injustice, COVID-19 pandemic, and some different topics there. As a marketing consultant, I work with other business individuals like yourself to really amplify their brands so that they can focus on doing what they love and spend less time on Instagram with the metrics and the captions and on Canva, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And then as executive director of our scholarship fund, I run the nonprofit, and we provide scholarships to kids from the Bronx housing projects in memory of my late grandmother, Juanita James. And they're given scholarship stipends for at least 4 years of college education. So anyone in the Bronx housing projects here in New York City is eligible to apply.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do it all. I'm always so curious how people that have this much experience and so much going on is able to navigate, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but I want to hear more about your overall entrepreneurial spirit, because everything that you're doing requires a level of creating, and you're creating a lot from scratch. Can you tell me more about what brought you to the intersection of where you are right now with all the different roles that you have?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And thank you so much. It's very much, day to day. I don't feel like I am doing something for each thing every single day. It's not like, okay, like 9 to 10, I'm a life coach, and 10 to 11, I'm this. And, there are different seasons as a
Yeah.
business owner and as an individual. So definitely not spinning all the plates every single day at once.
Mm.
But, I didn't own the identity of being an entrepreneur until somewhat recently. I think, there's that imposter syndrome we have, I think, as women, as people of color, that, even when you are an entrepreneur, sort of stepping into these places and saying, yeah, actually, that is what I'm doing. Before I had a life coaching business and before I was running a scholarship fund, when I was just writing, I say just, putting myself down there, writing and doing my marketing consultant, I was an entrepreneur in those ways as well, but I wasn't always owning those things. And I think that had something to do with my inner and outer worlds being misaligned in that way, because in my heart, I've always had multiple passions. I've always had my hands in different pots and run into different things. But it took me a while to get to this place and to realize all of that. When I was younger, I saw Wicked when I was 8 years old. Picture me, winter break. It's my first day after like third grade. I did not want to go. I was super tired. I wanted to go home, play with my Barbies, which I totally am embarrassed by now. Love Barbie, but like the fact that I almost didn't see Wicked is like crazy.
Yeah.
And it was acting for me from that
Mhm.
day on because I
Mhm.
didn't want to be an actor. I saw Idina Menzel as Alphaba, and I didn't even know who she was until years later because I saw her so wholly as Alphaba in that role.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to fly. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted all of these things that are wrapped up in acting. But, acting is not the only career where you can tell stories and have this whole dynamic life where you do multiple things. But that was the first thing and the first occupation, I think, that encapsulated a lot of my inner desires as a child. So I held on to that.
Mm.
And as an actor, that was kind of the first time that the idea of entrepreneurship was seeded into my brain because, actors are the CEO of their businesses and they're also the marketing consultants and they're also the vice presidents and everything. And that phrase, especially, you are the CEO of your own business. The first time someone said that to me was when I was around like 15 years old. And I remember being very terrified by that
Mhm.
and, very much like, I don't know if I wanna do that. I
Yeah.
would rather have somebody else, like, help me with this.
I mean, at 15,
Um
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and
It's
even sometimes now, I'm like, "This is a little scary."
yeah, I mean, it's we're like twice that age. I'm twice that age. I'm still not yeah.
Literally, and I sometimes still feel like that 15-year-old girl, but, at the same time, on the other side of that fear was excitement and empowerment and like, "Oh, I'm in charge of making the decisions and I'm in charge of my intuition and I'm in charge of crafting my own road." And
Mhm.
so I think that, I went on to different things and of course stopped acting and there are different parts to my story. But that seed was planted very young. And I think that, kind of finishing up my story here, I went on to act through college, at Vassar College. It was so wonderful and everything I wanted it to be. And yet, after college, I realized, I'm not sure though. Like, and that was devastating
Mhm.
because you spend your whole life thinking you're going to do one thing. And when you're in your early 20s, you think you have to have everything figured out. And you're like, oh my God, like, what's going on here?
Right.
But that entrepreneurial spirit, I think, let me pivot and figure other things out and think, okay, well, it's not this. Maybe it'll be that and that and that. And so that started off my journey. So I rambled a little bit there, but I think that the entrepreneurial spirit sort of manifested in my life in different ways, but there was sort of a call to action and like little voice inside of me that day that sort of like I could have looked back and said to that young girl, like, yeah, and you're gonna really, you know, run your own business one day. But yeah, at that moment, even though she didn't know that, there is a way that she sort of like collected lessons for me to use later.
Mm, I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm really intrigued by what you said around our inner and our outer worlds. Can you say more about what that means for you and what that looks like in your life as you're coming to a place where you're or like embracing, like you said, you just started thinking about embracing this identity. What does
Mhm.
it mean to bring those two worlds together?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this question so much. So, to put it kind of simply before I get into what it means to me, the outer inner world conflict is like I spend all my time doing X, but I really want to do Y. I've had a lot of success in X, but I'm kind of curious about this. It's like if you were to like look at an actual object or maybe like let's say there's like a mug. and the outside is very different. Like it's black and the inside is bright pink, you know? So just that sort of very obvious disconnects, but internally, inside us as human beings, which is a lot harder to point out than a mismatched mug.
Yeah.
And I love mugs. That was sort of my I have a big mug collection.
Me too. I love
So
mugs.
right?
Yeah.
I know I love it in your design. I'm excited for my little mug on the face on Instagram. It's very cool.
Oh, thank you. Yes. It was like a play
So
on, I don't know if you watched The Office, and
yeah,
there's like there's a mug that Michael Scott has called World Best Boss.
I
So,
love
so
that.
I wanted to have I guess, a nod to that cup, but yeah.
Yeah. I love that, and I do know The Office. I never watched all the way through. I
Oh.
made the mistake of trying to start watching The Office on my very first day working in an office.
Yeah, no.
Like, it was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I was right after I stopped acting, I'm like, "I'm gonna go temp somewhere," and so I'm, like, working in this, like, my very first reel, like, there's a cubicle and a kitchen, and I've never worked in an office before. I'm 23. I've been acting my whole life. I'm
Yeah.
in rehearsal rooms, not an office.
Yeah.
And so I go home and I watch The Office that night, and I'm like, "Oh, this is, like, really exactly what I just did today." This is
Yeah.
exactly it, and it felt too meta, it felt too real life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, going back to your question, I'm very tangential as a writer sometimes. Um, with my inner and outer worlds, I think my inner world was always about storytelling. Ever since I was little, like again, as an 8-year-old, I didn't want to go see a musical if I want to play with my Barbies because my Barbies, like, that was when I first wrote my first stories and plays. My Barbies had some really rich interior lives.
Mm.
Like the neighbors just moved in, but the parents are in a fight because of what happened on the drive, and
Mhm.
the younger Barbie wants to go play, and it's just so it's like these really like very intricate dramas I created with these Barbies, which of course may seem Barbie very exciting for me this summer. But so I go on to have that storytelling like itch sort of scratched by being an actor, but the best part of being an actor for me was, again, creating those backstories and having the internalize my character. Forming was fun, but it wasn't the best part. And so in college, I took my first intro to playwriting class, which was so exciting because I finally got to do more of that inner back work and exploring and be with the characters in a way that I wanted to be with them. But then after that, I was like, okay, that was fun, back to acting. And similarly to how entrepreneurship was planted as seed, writing also got planted in that class. And, I wrote a play for my senior project. It was incredibly just such a fulfilling experience. I won the playwriting award. Everyone's giving this amazing feedback about how it relates to their own mental health journeys. And I'm so grateful. And then I think that's nice, back to acting. So that this like thing is brewing and brewing, but I'm almost like not listening to it. I'm just thinking, well, I'm not a writer, I'm an actor. And then I eventually decide to take a break from acting and a break from theater, I said. But as I'm experimenting in all these different jobs, temping and associate producing and development associate and hiring assistant, all these things, I keep writing at the front desk. And writing is the thing that I do when, like, I don't have a deadline or I don't have a reason to be doing it. I'm working on a play right now, and I'm not it's so niche and so specific, but I'm not totally sure, like, who the audience is yet, but I love working on it. Writing is that thing that just bubbles to surface in my life, and so I think that bringing our inner and outer worlds together and really bringing our inner worlds to the outside is about making room for all of who we are, because bringing out my writer side and bringing out that storytelling side again, like I get to tell stories for a living and nurture that curiosity, and that wouldn't have happened if I had kept telling myself that I wasn't a writer, because I'm doing all of this out here. Like by day, I'm working in an office, like on The Office. I'm doing that. But on the inside, I have this whole other thing going on. And I know, I mean, that's how so many entrepreneurs' journeys start. Like how many people have started their business while working at the job they hate because they really want to go into this thing. Like so many countless stories, and I'm so inspired by women, especially who take these dreams and make them their blueprints. I think Glennon Doyle, who I love, said that we don't go to imagination to escape. We go there to see what we want out here. And I think that, yeah, the whole thing about your inner and outer worlds is that for me, I needed to pay more attention to my inner worlds
Mhm.
and let it be my guide.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I haven't read Glennon
Yes.
Doyle yet. I do wanna read her book. She has a book,
Yes.
um,
Yes, she does.
that
She has 3 books. You can
yeah,
read all 3.
yeah, but there's one that Brené Brown mentions, and I can't remember the
Mhm.
name of it, where she talks about
Untamed?
Untamed, right?
Mhm.
And I remember listening to the conversation they were having. I think it was a podcast
Yeah.
that they had,
Yes.
and they were
Yes.
talking about Glennon Doyle's moment of realization
Mhm.
when she goes to the safari with her daughter. Uh,
Yes. Goddamn cheetah.
yeah, the
Yes.
cheetah. And I didn't I it made me wanna
Mhm.
read the book. I haven't read it yet, but as she's talking about Glennon Doyle is talking about this safari that she went with her daughter and then the cheetah and watching this cheetah, this really majestic animal, and how there's a link to us as women who we can be seen as the cheetahs, right? Like we can be seen as like majestic, powerful
Yes.
creatures, and we're tamed just by what we're expected to do, what society expects us to be like. So that really
Mhm.
stuck with me, and that brings me back to what you were saying about our inner and our outer worlds.
Right? Yeah.
There's things inside of us that we know we have, that we want to share, that we want to bring out, and we see the possibility, and it's just the expectation just sets us back. I like that connection between our inner worlds and our outer worlds, and that writing. I think that for many folks, writing and other forms of artistic expression are a way to bridge the inner and the outer world together.
Yes.
So I love that. I'm actually trying to come back to that. I feel like writing when I was in high school, I wanted to become a journalist. And it wasn't until very
Mm.
recently, I think maybe 6 months ago, that I thought back to what I wanted to be when I was in high school. And I realized I never
Mm.
explored that. And now I'm starting to write again. And it's starting
I
to,
love
yeah.
that.
So
Oh,
yeah.
yay.
So I would love to hear more about your writing, and like I know you have a blog, so definitely we'll be reading that.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I'm gonna plug, you should definitely get the Untamed, journal. They have a journal that goes with the
Oh,
book,
really?
and that you can use to, like, write about your own, like, taming and wild and, like, what ideas do you have about this, and, like, what do you wanna, like, chat. It's so good, so I highly recommend it.
Awesome. That is such a good idea to have a journal prompt along with a
Yep.
book. I would have thought of that. So creative.
Yes. You will love it. You will love it.
Definitely. And I'm gonna put it in the show notes. So if you have like,
Yay!
a link or something that for folks that are interested in the book, the Untamed book, and the journal prompt,
Yes.
I will put it in the show notes.
Oh my god, nothing would make me happier. Glennon is, like, one of my favorite people in this entire world, so just the fact that you brought up the top of the story, the cheetah, and adding this makes me very happy. Glennon liked one of my Instagram posts a few weeks ago, and I stopped breathing for,
What?
like, a minute.
I would have
I
stopped breathing. I would be like,
know!
what? You should have pinned it at the top of.
I did. Oh, I will. I woke the neighbors. I totally woke the neighbors. I was like, "My life, like, forget all my other dreams and goals, like,
That's
this is
it.
it. I'm
That's it.
good.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
done. Like, I'm
Oh my
done.
god.
Life is
Definitely
good."
pin it. I could go
Yes.
back and look at it. I'll screenshot.
Yes. Yeah, share it with the
Document. Yes.
podcast.
Well, definitely. All right. So, I do want to move into any challenges, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of roles, and I want to get into how you came to this intersection of life coaching, because that's
Yeah.
it can be very niche. But before I do that, what sort of challenges have you faced as a life coach and building that up and any of your other roles as well?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely just the challenge of getting started, and I think that crazy leap of faith you have to have in yourself to bet on yourself and think, "Okay, I'm gonna do this," because it would be also very easy not to, you know? I tried out a million different jobs between, basically after college, I, stopped acting, and I tried all these different things out, and there was this little voice the entire time thinking, "Okay, you can go back to acting, you can try to figure out the other things, or, what is it?" Um, and also with acting, it's worth mentioning that right before I decided to stop acting for a while, I had just gotten the big show of my career.
Mhm.
Like, I got my New York Times review. It was super
Yeah.
exciting. So there was this like, "Oh god, and now you're just gonna like do something else?" That
Yeah.
was what everyone was
Mm.
saying to me. So there was the challenge of just like the fact that this shift in my life was confusing to those around me. And so I think there's always the challenge of like explaining transitions to other
Mm.
people because you know you are trying to believe in yourself and you're trying to have this insane amount of confidence. And then you kind of get wrapped up. I get really wrapped up in trying to convince people.
Mhm.
And in my younger years, and sometimes now, I very much want validation from people close to me. And I want people to say, like, this is a good move, Alexa. This is great. But you have to learn how to validate yourself and sort of look in the mirror and decide, like, I'm going to try this thing out. And, if it all goes south, I'm still going to try it out. It's still going to be worth it. And I don't need, this person, and that person telling me, like, that it's okay to do this. Support is amazing. My community is amazing. Don't get me wrong at all. But sort of that I had to give myself permission, I think was a challenge. So there was that, the logistical challenges of like, okay, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? When I started to be a full-time writer, like, what does that
Mhm.
mean? Like, how am I gonna what do I need to do? Like, what do I want to write about? Where am I gonna sit my plays? As a life coach, getting certification. Where do I want to go to school? Like, let's find out
Yeah.
about this. Like, who do I connect with? Let's network. So there are those sort of outer challenges of like very much just figuring it out because as you know, better than anyone, there are so many moving pieces in entrepreneurship and you're responsible for all of them. And then there's the internal challenge of just like giving yourself a daily pep talk. I definitely give myself a pep talk like probably like 3 times a day. Just like it's okay. It's okay. It's either I've got this or like no one's got this. How I'm feeling. Like either I'm like, yes, it's amazing and I'm good, or like I'm stressed and everybody else is also stressed. So it's okay that I'm stressed. So I oscillate between those. But yeah, a combination of inner and outer challenges for sure.
Yeah. I was just I had a call earlier, a coaching call with someone,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it was. I felt so off, and I was not
Mm.
sure what was going on. And you know what? Sometimes I feel that way. Sometimes it's just neutral. But this, I had to get up 10 minutes before our call, power pose, and go to the mirror and
Yes.
literally
Yes.
talk to myself and
Yes.
tell that person in the mirror,
Yes.
"You got this. You can coach this
Mhm.
person. They are
Mhm.
amazing. They are competent. They're confident, and you
Yep.
just are helping them get there." And I had to talk to myself about that
Yes.
for 10 minutes right before our
Mhm.
call because I felt so
Yeah.
off, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think I'm okay with that if it's just me, and maybe I'm trying to
Mhm.
write an email, but this was a call that I knew I really wanted to feel good about, and I had
Mhm.
to talk to myself in the mirror. So it
Yeah.
is definitely a lot of internal. I totally relate to the internal challenges
Yeah.
and then simply the
Mhm.
logistical needing to figure
Yeah.
out how do I create an email
Right.
list?
Mhm. Or like my
Y-
taxes and like opening an LLC and like what's this?
yeah.
What's that? Like so all these very you mentioned like adulting and like being our teens like years ago. Every now and then I just look around and I'm like, wait, I'm an
Yeah.
adult?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. And then I'm like, yes, you're an adult. Of course
Yeah.
you are. But I think that every adult will, I think adults who don't cop to like sometimes not feeling like
Mhm.
adults are just kidding themselves. Like we all, at least sometimes, don't feel we know
Yeah.
what we're doing.
No.
Absolutely not. Even the most together people sometimes feel like they have no idea what
Yeah.
they're doing. And I've tried to remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think that's the trick. It's reminding yourself that it's
Hmm.
th- to come it becomes a skill to get yourself back
Hmm.
to where you need to be to to function.
Yeah,
And like the faster you do it, I think it
absolutely.
becomes I'm starting to realize like, okay, now I know how to do it. Let me just learn how to do this a little faster. But
Mhm.
yeah, still don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, we both know as coaches how important it is to interrupt those habits and
Yeah.
patterns and like find more empowering beliefs and really work with our minds because, our brains don't. I was just writing this in a blog actually that I published today, um, called I'm like struggling with the title to play on something else, but it's clear mind, clean sink, can't
I was just
lose,
reading
which is a
it.
play
I
on.
I read
Oh
it. Yeah.
my god,
I think I got to like
yay!
75% of it and then yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I
god,
have to finish it,
thanks.
but I was like, girl, I feel the same way." Yeah, it was so good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, in there I talk about, the fact that our brains lie to us and our brains like don't aren't really helping us out sometimes. And I like to remind myself in the words of Elise Myers, who's a fabulous, just struggle to describe her in the blog, but she's on TikTok, she's a singer, songwriter, just all these amazing cool things she does. But just because you think it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's true.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not true. And I don't remember when I heard that, but I do remember hearing that in my early 20s and thinking, "Oh, I don't have to
Mhm.
believe all this stuff I'm carrying around. Interesting. Like, fascinating." And I just like having that option, even if we don't always act on it, just knowing it's an option was very groundbreaking for
Yeah.
me.
I think that's the core
Yeah.
of coaching, I think. And even just even people who are coaches, right? They need coaches too. They need this reminder too.
Oh my god, of
You know?
course. I have an amazing
Yeah.
coach. Absolutely. My coach is wonderful.
Yes,
Yeah.
and as much as we understand the concepts and can really bring that out for the people we work with, we need that reminder too. We need to stay yeah, so
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm with you there. Okay.
Thanks.
So you do have many roles, you wear many hats. How do you know, like you said, I think you did allude to this a little bit, like you're not from 9 to 5, you're not a life coach.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not.
But how do you then know where to focus on, where to get yourself grounded in? And yeah, how do you know what to work on?
Yeah, that's a great question and a daily
Mhm.
question. I don't always strike the right balance. It's tricky. I have the support of my amazing coach. I have an amazing therapist. Having support is really important. And, seeing how other people are doing things and okay, what tools can I use to optimize my time and, all of that fun stuff. But I think it also comes down to thinking about seasonality, which is really important for me. Like with the scholarship fund, for example, we have a couple of key times of the year, like when we do our applications in the
Mhm.
spring, when we bring in our new scholars in the summer, and then end of year is heavy fundraising time with, Giving Tuesday and end of year annual fundraising and all that kind of fun stuff. So you can kind of look and think, oh, okay, here are some big times. Maybe I'm not going to also launch an insane project, something else in this area at the same time. Or maybe I have to do something else in this area. So now I know, okay, this is going to have to shift over here. Just having that sort of long view, I think, and trying to, when I can plan, but at least just like have a forecast of what's to come so that I know, okay, if October's going to be really busy, maybe September can be a little lighter in some ways. If there's going to be a lot going on in this area. Like, how can I make all the puzzle pieces fit together and really examine what needs to get done in a way where I don't feel too spread thin, where I can give the attention to everyone that I need to, and also to myself. So it's really it's a daily practice, and also it's that zoom out and just to look at everything before you're in the middle of it. So I think that without that future planning and the daily check-ins, it can be really easy to just feel like there's a mountain of things to do at all times. And overwhelm and burnouts are really, really real. And things that I I don't think are very fun. I don't think anyone thinks they're very fun, but very, very slippery slope to get into without the right tools. Yeah.
It's so common because I think what's harder about especially when you own your own business and you're managing all of your own projects and creative projects and everything that you have going on where the accountability for it is yourself. I think that sometimes it's hard to prioritize and figure out what is important here because everything is important, especially if it's for you, right? If it's like
Right.
your own business and your own
Yeah.
projects and everything.
Right.
And I I love what you said about zooming out and having being reminded to do that because I think when we care so deeply about something, care about
Oh
our
yeah.
business, our
Yeah.
clients, our projects, the clients we serve is with you, you serve a
Yeah.
nonprofit clients, students, like that is very that's work that requires your commitment, your accountability. And that reminder, you have to constantly be reminded to zoom out. Even if it's not you,
Yeah.
if someone else can do that with you,
Hmm.
because it's so easy to get caught up in
Yeah.
everything that you're doing, especially if all of the things you're doing are your babies.
Right. Absolutely. And I think we can often say like we translate passion into urgency
Yes.
so quickly. I care so much. I have to get it run right now.
Yeah.
Just right now. And like you mentioned too, zooming out with
Mhm.
somebody can be so important. Like having a coach, a therapist, a community of
Yes.
people. Like we
Yeah.
met through with Kita Zuletta, who has her own
Yes.
fabulous podcast. Um, you just have to, yeah, stay accountable to everything that you have taken on and also stay accountable to yourself because I think that it can just get it's really easy to forget, but it's such a privilege that I get to do all this work. And, when I'm sitting down with a client, like, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life unless there's a
Mhm.
true emergency. And really, something I've learned along the way from several fantastic mentors is that we often use the word emergency, but too loosely in culture. Like my agent said to me, I answer my email Monday through Fridays. On the weekends, like, I will get to it, but maybe just save it for Monday because there is no such thing as a playwright emergency. And I was like, yeah, that's super true. That's super, super true. And coming out of, being an actor and going to auditions whenever and, bosses who treat you like your time is just theirs, that was so important to me. And so I think setting those boundaries also really helps you prioritize. Um, but yeah, coming back to the fact that it's privilege. And so when I sit in front of a client, I really try my best and like just have 15 to 30 minutes before and I'm just doing what I need to do to make sure that I'm not thinking about
Mhm.
anything but the
Mhm.
person in front of me. And that's so true with any endeavor in life, especially in life coaching. I want to create that safe space. I want to be so present with you because the work you're doing is so emotional and open and vulnerable and
Yeah.
hard work that I want to
Yeah.
fully support you in. So I think it's essential that I'm able to, I love wearing
Mhm.
all of these hats, but my my nightmare would be for anyone to feel like, oh, I have this person in front of me and they're just, writing an email and also taking a
Yeah.
call and doing this like that. So the idea of busyness as a
Mm.
status symbol is something I really
Yeah.
can't get behind. That is not my favorite thing in the world at all, and I've gone a couple different directions here, but yeah, I think that the more I can figure out, what's going where and scheduling and all of these things, the more I have that room for myself and for people who matter to me and that
Yes. So
presence.
good. The boundaries, so important. Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Alrighty. So I want to get into just how you feel about, in general, like entrepreneurship and like what you've heard of entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
think there's folks that,
Mhm.
romanticize it. And I'm wondering what sort of things that you've learned about entrepreneurship. And maybe it was early in your journey, but that maybe you weren't on board with and maybe sort of contradicted just who you are as a person and what you value. And like I'll just share like a quick example. For me was just me thinking about
Please. Yeah.
when I started this journey and this business, I was sort of blocked by this idea that I was participating in capitalism because I was starting my own business. And I'm
Mhm.
like, is that
Mm.
what I'm doing? How do I deal with that? And because when you think about business, entrepreneurship, that's sort of like where my mind used to go. And it really rubbed against the values that I hold around anti racism and anti oppression. And I'm wondering if you've ever thought about that, or like has any principles about entrepreneurship didn't sit well with you, if at all.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And absolutely here with you thinking deeply about the structures that we're in and liberating from those structures. I totally hear you with analyzing, capitalism and thinking about the ways that we're contributing to structures that we critique in different ways. With entrepreneurship, for me, the biggest thing that contradicts my way of doing
If at all.
things. Probably, yeah. The solo nature of being an entrepreneur. I think that, there's this kind of like, there's part of this girl boss, like, feminism movement that I love, like, and I'm here for. But then there's this kind of like, I'm doing it all by myself and I'm badass and I can take on the world. And, you know, there probably was a time, and there definitely was a time when I was younger and thought, yeah, I can do this and
Hmm.
that, and I'm doing everything. And I no longer want
Yeah.
to do everything. No, thank you. Like, I don't want to do everything, and I do not want to do it myself. So, the idea of like, just because I can do it doesn't mean that I should do it. And I think there's this idea of, especially early on, entrepreneurs having to, do everything and be really, really grateful just all the time. Be grateful for every opportunity coming your way. And yeah, I'm a big cheerleader of gratitude. But if an opportunity comes my way that's not aligned with me, it doesn't sit well in my heart. I have said yes
Hmm.
in the past too many an opportunity that was
Hmm.
not right for me because I was taught to be grateful and to not really do those kinds of check-ins with myself. So, yeah, the idea that I have to say yes to everything and do everything myself.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I think it's such a common
Thank you.
feeling, I think, when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I think it's because of within the context of the United States, it's such an individualistic country and society that
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
permeates, like, especially our career. If you're a woman of color and BIPOC, or coming from cultures that are more collective than individualistic, it's going to misalign. I'm glad that you said that, because you don't realize it, I think, until later, that that can sometimes be holding you back. It's just this idea of you having to do everything yourself,
Yeah.
and then you try to do everything yourself,
Mhm.
and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Or, it might work for other people. It's really great for other people if you're doing everything, and it might bring you a lot of success, but it's not gonna work for you in the long term. It's not. It's not. And I there's very much a younger version of me, like, listening to this thinking, "Oh my god, no, of course it's gonna work. I can make anything work. What are you talking about, Alexa?" But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever feel that your upbringing in New York played a part in just like I wanna experience like just everything that there is?
Yeah, I love New York. I being a native New Yorker is a core part of my identity. The city has made me who I am in just so many different ways. And there are also things that I can't stand about it all the time, obviously, as well. Of course, I'll get very defensive when people who aren't here criticize it
We
because only we could
Yeah.
criticize it. Um, but as far as it influenced my career, as an actor and a writer, it's such an incredible city for the arts. So I grew up with
Mm,
a sense of, okay, I was born in the place that I want to be. So there was this excitement and this sort of relief around, okay, I'm going to
mhm,
graduate from college and come right back here and be an actor or a writer or something. Um, and I think that as far as, the hustle bustle culture of things goes, yeah, that is something that I did not really think about or come to terms with until adulthood because, coming back to the same place that you're from after any kind of transition, college or long job, anything, you kind of have to re-examine your relationship with the place because, like, I grew up in Stuyvesant Town, which is down by Avenue A, 14th Street, all of that. Um, and so people will always ask me, "Oh, you know any fun places to go out and hang out?" And I'm like, "I know some really cool playgrounds. Like, that's all I've got for you. You're the city that you know as an adult is very different than the city you know as a 12-year-old." And yet, yeah, there is this subconscious, like, I'm a
mhm,
really fast walker. I very much can't always relax in a certain way, like a public transit and different places, and there's different, contrasts when I travel that are always kind of funny for my friends to point out and different ways. But I definitely have craved a
mm,
slower pace in the last
mm,
few years, especially after COVID. Being in the city during COVID was incredibly scary and very eerie as it was for, everyone around the world. But seeing the way that things went so quiet was
mhm,
so jarring. And I think that even after the pandemic ended, my life stayed pretty quiet in terms of, I'm not getting on buses and subways and everywhere the way with the same, just laissez-faire, like, whatever, as I used to. Like, "Okay, let's just go." 'Cause I'm thinking about risks, and I'm thinking about, safety and,
yeah,
resurgences and all of these things. And so it has been very interesting to try to lead a quiet
yeah,
and slower life in a
mhm.
city that never sleeps, which is so cliche. I can't believe I just said that. Oh god, I'm gonna cringe so hard when I listen to this. I can't believe I said
So,
that.
you're a
But
writer,
yeah,
so
there is
it
definitely
does
a
it
contrast.
sometimes I think that writers are like, "Oh, I can't believe I said that," but you're still human.
Oh, absolutely,
You're a human.
1,000%. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I know that. But yeah, there is that contrast of again, the inner and outer worlds, right? Of the world around me being very fast paced and busy, and then being able to carve out a quieter existence. And I guess how it relates to entrepreneurship, you know, I'm very like, yes, I'm doing a couple of different things. I'm multi hyphenate. I have multiple passions, but I think really carefully about what I allow into my life and what I want to take on. And there has to be some slowness and intentionality to that, that I guess does, yeah, like fight against the natural rhythm of New York. But at the same time, I think that New York does have its slow side and its cozy side and, just a different pace to things in different places. And I also will say that sort of opposite of all that, I am really comfortable in the chaos. And I think that that has served me really well in a lot of business settings, even though I don't like being in chaotic settings. And I certainly don't think it is a badge of honor to like function really well in craziness and stress and no sleep and great schedules and meetings here and there, like all of that. I I do function pretty well in chaos and like pivoting and changing plans in a way that, yeah, I think New York
Yeah,
has been
yeah. My
helpful with.
favorite part was in the winter, staying in. Just yeah, yeah,
Right.
just
I feel you. I
watching
feel you.
watching
I
the
feel
the
you. I
snowfall
do.
and just knowing, "Okay, well, let me just read a book."
Yeah, I feel you. But then it also is like the okay, I have to get like downtown in like half an hour and like the kind of
Yeah.
like challenge of like putting on your snow boots and your jacket and someone cuts you off and now you have to like something a little bit fun about that too, which I I know it's
No,
fun, but it's a
I
challenge.
seriously, I
It's
like
something.
no, there I totally
It's something.
relate because I remember like having I used to live next to the 456 and I used to travel from I at towards the end of my time there, I would travel from Flatbush all the way to East Harlem. But I lived next to
Ooh,
the
okay.
train and both my apartment was next to the train and my job was next to the train. So I would challenge myself to just
That's
book
nice.
it and still
Yeah.
not be ashamed to stop by the Starbucks and I was needed at my desk 5 minutes earlier. So
But
I
you needed the
needed the
Starbucks. You
latte.
needed the
So, and
Starbucks.
you
It's
can't
like
like if you're gonna place a Starbucks
obviously
right
it's
here,
pro
right out of the subway, like you can't yeah. You
yeah,
yeah.
you want me to go. It's
Exactly.
disrespectful for me not
You're
to go.
exactly like
You're asking me to come. Yeah.
yeah.
What years were you in New York during?
Oh, I was there yeah, I moved there 2013 and then I didn't leave until
Okay, gotcha.
2021. Yeah. So 2021. Yeah, I
Nice.
just moved
So
back
recently.
to LA here.
Yeah.
And I seriously,
Yeah.
I consider it. I
Nice.
tell my partner all the time, what if I really miss just having a bodega down the street and having just the
Of course you
accessibility.
do.
I can't walk out of my apartment right now and I would literally have to drive 5 minutes to go and get like a sandwich. So and
Mm,
driving 5 minutes, that's a 30-minute walk.
true.
That's not which I can do.
True.
And
I know you can't walk in LA. I know you like I've tried so hard to walk in LA so many times and I always end up like on a freeway having to call an Uber from a gas station. And it's always like, what's wrong with me? But you would have to walk outside and do a 5 minute drive, but you would not be like covered in sweat when you got there because the humidity is not as bad. So you have that trade off.
but I just love
Yep.
that's what I do miss about being in New York is having the accessibility to a bodega, to the Starbucks. I miss that.
Yeah. Well, we're always here.
You are a Grey's Anatomy fan.
Yeah.
I don't know what season are you like fully caught up? Because I'm on season 9.
So I was just watching like before we recorded, and I'm in the recent season. I don't want to give anyone any spoilers who's are listening, but also we mentioned the show. So like if you don't watch Grey's Anatomy, just like take the earpod out for a minute. So I'm in so this is the point when the spoilers are coming. This is how it's happening, guys. I am in the current season. And do you know what's happening in the current season? Because season 9 is a bit behind.
I
And
know it came out a long time ago, right? And I actually tried a long time ago to watch and before streaming, I couldn't get on the schedule. Like there was always something going on, so I couldn't watch in real time. Now that we have
mm,
streaming,
yeah,
obviously I am binging to the core
of
in the
course.
morning, during lunch, at
Yes.
night, while I'm, in the bath.
Yes. Ah,
Maybe
yes.
TMI. But I'm in season 9. So this is, and for folks who, if you want to watch, don't listen to this part. If you don't care, I'm in season 9 and I'm at this Lexi just died. That was so hard
Mm,
for me.
wow, and now our night is and now good nights. I cannot. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about, like, so you only watched up to this point. You haven't watched past this part.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, buckle up. There's so much there's so much to come. So much to I was just outside crying. I was like, "I've just gotta get it together for this podcast and stop." Like, literally, I just watched this afternoon and, like, each episode made me cry. Each one. I'm a little dramatic. I do
Yeah.
cry quite often. I have, like,
Yeah.
a big range of emotions create over here,
Oh,
but
Alexa.
whew,
I'm gonna have to come back with you and just sort of process because it was that episode, I literally didn't want to keep watching. I was like, "Why?" And you know what's crazy is that I'm
mhm.
binging, so I'm
Oh,
not,
yeah.
imagine there's no s yeah, so
Yeah, there's no space in
but it's
between. Yeah,
if you were to watch this way back whenever it was on, I think during this time was 2012, and so you're still watching with space in between, and the time that lapses in between each episode and
yeah,
just the time for every season,
right.
it's enough to create
Yeah,
a real emotional bond to these characters, and
right. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
binging, and it's still making me cry.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, and, like, they're still going, like, you cannot catch up because they are still like, the strike is going on right now, of course, but it's still going. They've been renewed.
but yeah, so I can't believe that it's still going on, 1, but I'm also glad that it is because great,
Yep,
and it just makes me it's so comforting to
yep,
me just because there's so much emotional like you said, there's like an emotional range that happens throughout each episode, every one of them, with all the different characters. And I go through a lot of I'm also a very emotional character and person in general. Yeah. I just like I literally sometimes will wake up and I'm like I said, like, oh, what is wrong with me today? And I have to like figure out how to get myself back to function or baseline. But
oh, yeah.
are there and so that's sort of what I do for self-care, and I will eat lunch and binge watch, and sometimes I have to X out of because I watch it on my laptop, so I have to X out of my window and, like, take it off because I will continue, and I will not get anything done. Are there any pleasures that you also take part in that feel comforting around your self-care?
Yeah, so I'm also a big Grace fan
Mhm.
and all the Shondaland shows. I think Shonda Rhimes is a genius, so I've watched all of her shows. I didn't finish, How to Get Away with Murder yet because I was watching that at the same time as Scandal was finishing and became too much, so I need to go back and finish that, but I've watched all of her other shows, so I recommend them
That's
all.
next for sure.
If I'd have a good binge watch, though, I definitely love a good podcast. I got really into podcasts during the pandemic, so I listened to the one you mentioned earlier with Brene, is How I Found Glennon Doyle, and her podcast is amazing, so I love that. I love going for a good walk with my friends, honestly, just prioritizing, like, at least one hangout a week with my best friend and just hanging out, whether it's movie night with her puppy or getting coffee or just that time together feels so important to me. Um, yeah, being outside in the summer and the winter, I think, especially when, seasonal affective disorder and all of that starts up, just going for a quick walk can really restart my senses. And yeah, those are the ones that first come to mind. I definitely also have a like not consistent, but like semi-consistent yoga practice I'm trying to make more regular. And one of my other best friends is a amazing yoga instructor, Mark Malone. They are just phenomenal. So they hold me a little bit accountable there, which is nice. And I always feel so much better after a good session on the mat.
Be 2 more questions and we can wrap up. Okay. So I was on your website. I really love the message that you have around authenticity And what does authenticity mean to you? And how can someone tap into their authenticity for their business?
Yeah, yeah. Authenticity is one of my core values. It really is everything to me in my personal life and professional life. And being authentic, put quite simply, is about being who you are, not, your best self, most productive self, just yourself. It's the core of who we are. It's the insides of us. It's what makes me me, what makes you you. And when I think about how people can bring more authenticity into their lives and specifically into their work. But I think the tool or the sentiment that I would leave for today is really thinking about who you are when no one's watching. Thinking about who is that self. I like to think of it as my 3 a.m. self sometimes. Like, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep and you kind of just do whatever you want. I think just that level of freedom and like, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I have nothing else to do. If I email someone, they're going to think I have no boundaries. Like, what am I just going to do with myself? Like, who am I going to be right now? I'm not saying to, you know, be in your pajamas and watch Grace like I do in the middle of the night sometimes, but just sort of connecting to who you are on the inside like that when you're by yourself and when you're with people who you're most comfortable with. And like, what would you do and how would you show up if that self was gonna, come into the room? Like, you're working on a really big presentation at work, and during the day, you're not getting anywhere, and you're having limiting beliefs, and it's hard to work with different collaborators and all these things. But in the middle of the night, this great idea comes to you, and you're like, I don't know if this is possible, but if I could do this thing, I would try it like that. Or if we had these resources, I would do this. And there's just a freedom there that we retreat to inside of ourselves when we have that freedom within. And so, yeah, authenticity is showing up as that person when it's not 3 a.m., when the sun is up, when people are around, and finding the people who will celebrate, not tolerate, but celebrate your authenticity and nourish it and help you cultivate it. Because if you're not in a place where all of you is celebrated, it's going to be so much harder to let that person out because that part of you isn't going to feel safe. So I think that, yeah, as entrepreneurs, as people, as women, as people of color, we have to be in spaces where we are safe and free and encouraged and celebrated to be all of who we are. But we've convinced ourselves that, oh, well, because, Beatrice is doing XYZ and she's successful, I should do XYZ and be successful. Oh, and Glennon Doyle said this, so I should do that. Like, and we convinced ourselves that our best selves somehow have to look like other people's best selves. And best self is really like who at your best. And is your best like, killing yourself trying to be like somebody else and not be authentic and all these things? Or is it you like in your optimal state, like with people around you as your best, with a good night's sleep as your best, like with your 8 glasses of water as your best? I think we've kind of gotten caught up in best as a competitive thing and not really what's best for me way. And your best today is different tomorrow. Best changes. It all changes. Do not apologize for your ambition and passion. Trust your gut. Find your community, virtually, in person, even online through thought leaders and podcasts you love, like Glennon's, and people who tell you that they know everything. I always tell young people, it's a lie. It's a lie. I always tell young people when I do, like career conferences at my alma maters, honestly, stay far away from people who are convinced they know everything because people, the people in this world who actually do know quite a lot and are the most successful are the first people who will tell you they don't know everything. They will absolutely do that. And I just think that's a really important thing when you're first starting out at anything at any age. And you just feel so inexperienced and so meek, especially as women. We're like, oh, I have so much to learn from you and all of these things, which, yeah, can be important, but no one knows everything. And even if they do know something, you also know things. It's not just like when you're starting off in a new venture. When I first became a life coach, I felt very, of course, new at it and I was figuring out my footing. And then one day it kind of hit me. Yeah, I'm new at life coaching, but I'm not new at life. And I do have a lot of experiences that make me capable and qualified here. And that was just in the beginning, which was a while ago. And so just, you ask for one thing, I give you a million things like a writer and like a rambler. But just that sense of self confidence and just that intuition, I think is just so important to carry because everything else will come. Like, I'm not going to tell you something that was secret sauce about, how to use QuickBooks or this or that. Like, you will figure it out and you can figure anything out if you have the right community and that belief in yourself. I really do believe that.
Awesome. Where can we find you and how can people work with you?
Yeah. So my website, just my name, alexajuanitajordan.com is the hub for all of the things. And then you can find me on Instagram at alexajuanitajordan or at Alexa Jordan Coaching or at Wild Cozy Free for my blog. And all those, additional handles are under the main one, Alexa Juanita Jordan. You can work with me as a life coach in one-to-one coaching. I would absolutely love to hear from you and see if we're a good fit. You can work with me as a marketing consultant to work on brand strategy and social media content, and also as a writer if you want to collaborate on a project. And of course, if you know any scholars who would be interested in our scholarship fund, you can always reach out and head to our website jjmsf.org. And our Instagram handle is on the page there too.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us.
Oh, thank you so much. Likewise, it was just so wonderful to be here with you. I'm so inspired by your story as well, and just so grateful to be in community together.
All right, that was Alexa Juanita Jordan, y'all. Make sure you go follow her, visit her page, her blog, and check out her socials. Come on over to the show notes to visit her corner of the internet, and of course, to know more about her nonprofit, the Juanita James Memorial Scholarship Fund at jjmsf.org. I also include a link to Glennon Doyle's books that we mentioned earlier, and I know I gotta get myself those books, so I'll definitely be doing that soon. But here's what I'm taking away from my conversation with Alexa. Number one is our inner self doesn't always reflect our outer self. If you believe that may be true for you, I would say look back. What were some early experiences or things that you love to do that could give you a glimpse into your inner self? Number two, you can go through different pivots in life that confirm your entrepreneurial spirit. We all go through these different stages and questions in our lives. And when we make brave choices, like Alexa did, it is a reminder that you're more of an entrepreneur than you think, which leads me to number three. Your authentic self is the person at 3 a.m. who has ideas and thoughts and brings them out not just at 3 a.m., but when the sun is up. So, if you recall, we sometimes have those moments where we can't sleep. I know I have those moments when we can't sleep and we have so many thoughts. And some of those things that we think about, ideas that we come up with our head, when we wake up in the morning, those sometimes those ideas are gone. But what Alexa is saying is bring those ideas to life, come back to those ideas, come back to those thoughts. And that is what can bring out your authenticity in your work and in the business that you have. Once again, thank you all for being here. Please come back to social media, tag Alexa and myself on any of the posts for this episode, and let us know your thoughts. any questions, and please share, like, and follow us on the socials. Remember, please, to leave a review or leave a rating. And if this episode or any other episode that you listen to has served you or you've learned something from it in any way, I would truly, truly appreciate your review on Apple, on Spotify, and spread the word. We have at least 2 more episodes for you this season. I want to say 2, maybe 3, so stay tuned. I may have a bonus. So, overall, come back every Monday for new episodes, and I hope you guys take care. Bye.